Hey, what's up? It's Comic95, the Savior. So for this video, I want to talk to college students about what the actual cost of living in Japan is. So again, as always, with all of my videos, this is my own personal opinion and experience. I have been living in Japan for a couple of years, and I have kind of experienced everything, as well as near homelessness. So, with that said, I have pretty much lived in every major city in Japan. I have experienced both working and being a student here, and I am currently doing both, as well as some other things, which I will tell you guys about that very soon. But staying on topic for this video, I want to talk about the cost of being here. So again, there's a ton of misinformation about the cost of Japan. You've probably heard, oh, Japan is so expensive. You need thousands and thousands of dollars. You have to be rich to stay there. But to be totally honest, there's so much more to this, and I want to help debunk that myth. So if you've watched any of my other videos, it might seem as though I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, because again, it all totally depends on what you're doing in Japan that determines how expensive things are for you, as well as where you are living. So the first and most obvious thing is, if you're living in Tokyo, like how most of you guys want to, which is where I initially started off in Japan, it is obviously significantly more expensive than the rest of the country. Think of Tokyo as like New York. New York is more expensive than anywhere else in America, pretty much, except for some places in like California. But with that said, when you think of the most expensive place to live, it's kind of tied between the two. I know California is really expensive too, but normally New York is kind of like the first place that comes to mind for most people, because that's where most people want to live and dream of making it big. Although we can argue that with California too, but you get what I am saying. With that said and done, Tokyo is the most expensive place to live in Japan, while ironically also offering the lowest salary. So, as you can imagine, if you want to lower your costs and make more money, you don't want to live in Tokyo. For example, that's a big reason why I'm living where I am right now. Not currently why I am in Kobe, because that wouldn't be honest. You guys know why I'm here. But I mean why I chose to come to Kansai. So besides my boyfriend, I wanted to come, to Kansai after I realized how much cheaper it was when I met my boyfriend for the first time and visited him. I was like, oh my god, like how is your rent? So his rent was less than $100 than what I was paying to live in a bunk bed. I was like, why is your rent so cheap? The groceries are cheaper here. The transportation actually does cost more. Just by a little bit, but it does cost more. Train stops are more distant, so I guess it kind of balances out a little bit. I don't know. But back on subject, we're not going to get into a whole detail on balancing the two. I'm simply explaining how your experience and perception of Japan will change depending on where you are living. So, teachers that have been working longer than I have been, that have more experience than I have, that are older than I am, that have more pale skin, blonder hair, bluer eyes, whatever the case, than I do, most of them are getting paid less than what I am. I personally do a lot of stuff, so my salary is actually kind of high, like very high in Japan. But if you are like the average teacher in Tokyo, you're only getting somewhere between $1,500 to no more than $2,500 a month. The average teacher in Tokyo only makes about $2,000, and that is before. Sounded like fireworks. Okay. Anyway, that is before taxes and everything. So keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that once again, while your pay is lower, your rent is actually higher, and so is your grocery bill. However, do also keep in mind that you're going to pay less money for train fare and transportation, which doesn't matter because your employer reimburses anyway, unless you're a student, which is what this video is about. And number two, grocery stores, etc., clothing stores, malls, there's more of them and they're a lot closer to you, and so are convenience stores. You have more options for your shopping, and everything is also closer. So, with that said, Tokyo is more convenient than anywhere else in Japan, but it is also more expensive. It is also so convenient that having a car is actually inconvenient and pretty much just for a show. Unless, of course, you're moving or camping or something, then of course having a car to drive yourself to these destinations is obviously worth it, and you get what I'm saying. So, anyway, excuse me, I am sick, and my voice is a little bit stuffy, but I'm going to make this video anyway. The information is still good. So, you basically need at least about $20,000 for a year of living in Japan as a student. You can get this through any means. I'm not talking about in order to satisfy immigration to get your visa. I'm talking about once you're actually living here. Do you need to have $20,000 before you come to Japan? Ideally, yes. Are you going to have it? No, of course you're not. That's why you're watching my video. So, with that said, I am going to try to explain to you why you want to have at least half of that. You want to come to Japan with at least $10,000 if you're planning to be a long-term university student. And this is the reason why. You basically need about $1,500 a month to live off of. Now, of course, you can make it with less money than that, but I'm trying to be a little bit realistic, so I'm going to break down exactly what your money is going to go towards, as well as give you some, ideas as to how you can make this $10,000 before you get to Japan. So without including any of the special move-in fees, etc., which when you add all of this stuff together, you are looking at paying at least about $5,000 US, if not more, to move into a general, typical Tokyo Japanese apartment. But in general, the average rent here in Japan, monthly rent, is between $800 to $1,200 US. Most people pay somewhere between about $700 to $900 a month, and they are living in a very, very small apartment. However, if you move further out in Tokyo, so you're not living in the downtown, red light districts, you're not in Shibuya, you're not in Shinjuku, you're not, in those areas. If you move out to, further back in Tokyo, like Mitaka, places like that, your rent will cost less. If you're trying to live near your school, which I recommend doing because you'll save money, you will pay more in your rent. So this is the reason why I do not recommend getting an apartment. However, a share house generally costs half of this, which is why I recommend getting a share house. Your share house normally costs anywhere from about $400 to as much as $1,200. But on average, you will pay about $400 to about $600 to get either a private room or a bunk bed at a share house. You can also find a share house that is close to your school, which will make it totally worth it. I highly recommend Sakura House. I didn't have the best time there, being totally honest with you, but it was worth it because I saved a ton of money and I met a lot of people and it started off really good. I cannot lie. If you are not as irritable as me, you don't have OCD, you don't have all the weird quirks and problems that I do, you will probably love it there and not be so annoyed and think that it's totally worth it. There are plenty of people that choose to live there long term. I stayed at Sakura House for exactly a year. In fact, I stayed there for a year and 1 day to be exact. So I experienced all of the seasons. I saw people come and go. And like anyone, of course, after you've been somewhere for a while, you will naturally find things that you don't like about it. But we're not talking about my likes and dislikes. I have a totally separate video and blog post that talk about these things. You can check out my playlist on being a college student in Japan, as well as read my blog for more information about school here if you want to know more about that. So moving along, you are generally going to pay, we're going to start with the lowest amounts you'll pay. So let's just say you're going to use, about $400 automatically out of the $1,500 is going to go towards your rent at your share house. So that's one chunk of it right there. Share houses also cut back on your bills. You normally won't have to pay, for internet. You won't have to pay for, electricity, water, gas, nothing. It's all normally included at a typical share house. However, some share houses do actually charge you a separate fee for this. Sakura House does not, and that's another reason why I recommend using them. If you are a student or if you're working part-time or you plan to leave your house at any point in time, I highly recommend getting pocket Wi-Fi, and this would generally be an additional $20 to $50. But again, we're going to stick with the lowest price. So let's say you're only going to pay $20. That's an additional $20 to add that will come out of your $1,500 a month that you have put aside for your 6 months of living in Japan without any work, no help whatsoever. If for any reason you do have to pay a fee though for your share house, let's just say you're going to pay $100 because that's typically the amount they charge. So as of right about now, let's see, where are you? So we're going to round everything up. Let's just say you're spending $500 for your share house because mine is $490. Might as well say $500. So that's $500 right there. You have $100 for your utilities, extra bills, etc. You have $20 for your internet, so your pocket Wi-Fi that you will use to get around in Japan. There are no street names, no addresses, etc. And your GPS is going to be hit or miss, and mostly miss a lot of the time because businesses here are normally stacked on top of each other and go underground too. So just because you're in the general area does not mean that you're going to be able to see what you're looking for right away. It can be very difficult and challenging. And even Google and Apple Maps can be hard to tell you, difficult to read and figure out where exactly is the place that you're looking for. So you really want to make sure that you don't just have written directions. You want to be able to have an actual GPS and the ability to call people. Do also keep in mind that there's no need to have a phone number. Everyone here uses the Line app, even your job. So yes, kind of a waste to have a Japanese phone number. You're never going to use it. Your Japanese friends probably aren't going to share their actual phone number with you. They're not going to call you on it, and they're not going to want you to call them on it unless they're like your boyfriend or super, super close best friend. Everyone uses the Line app to do everything. So, if you're living in Tokyo, you chose a share house, you're just a couple of stops away from your school, which is what you should be doing, you're only going to spend about maybe $1, $20, $30 a day, one way. So you're typically going to spend about $200 to $300 on transportation a month. You can typically spend even less than that if you choose to get a student pass, which you should be doing to save money and time. So say that that's another $200 for your transportation. So now you have $500 for your rent. You have, $20 for your pocket Wi-Fi, $100 for your utilities at your place, and you have, so what else? You have $200 for your transportation, and now your fifth thing, if I recall, we're number 5, right? Your groceries. So if you're cutting back on everything, spending the least amount possible, you're going to spend about $300, no more than about $400 on your groceries. So this gives you close to about $100 a week. Let's just say $75-ish dollars. For each week, you're going to eat cheap foods. This is like cereal, milk, curry, rice. Very simple, basic stuff to save as much as possible. I'm not telling you how to be lavish in Japan. I'm showing you the cheapest way possible to make it work here if you really do not have money, but you really, really want to come to Japan. So after you've done all of that stuff, that's going to come to about $1,100, $1,200-ish dollars, and the rest of that remaining money is what you're going to use for fun. Obviously, you're not going to live off of curry and rice every day for every meal. You're going to be on the toilet for the rest of your life. You're going to go out to eat. You're going to want to go to parties. You're going to go to a different train station. You're going to get lost and get a taxi. You're going to have to do laundry. You're going to have to buy a new pair of pants. You're going to have to buy a new pair of shoes. This is where that extra money will come in. And then, of course, if you're smart, you want to save a little bit too. So, this is why you need to have at least $10,000 to survive for 6 months. There is no guarantee that you will get, an approval to work part-time in Japan. And generally, you have to be living here for a minute before you can even apply for permission to work. Also, keep in mind, you have to maintain your grades and attendance at school. So, you're not going to have, all of your free time to use for working because you're going to have to study too. And you're going to want to date and have fun and go to parties, etc. and learn Japanese. Thus, you're not going to be using all of your free time to work, and your employer isn't going to have you working as many hours as possible either because they don't want to get in trouble with the law, and they want to save money too. They don't want to have to pay for you to work 30 hours a week when they can have you just do a whole lot of hard work during their hardest, their most busy hours. And they'll probably only have you work maybe 15, 10 hours, etc. So, this is why you want to get a job as soon as possible, and you also want to get your own private students. This is also why, if your school offers it, you want to join the work-study program as well. Do not waste time. You will run out of your money very fast. Do not think that your student loans are going to carry you, over whatever, because you're like, oh, I got $20,000. Girl, boy, whoever you are, you're going to use that entire amount to pay for your books and your first semester. It's going to be gone. You need to make sure you get a job to keep yourself afloat, and you don't want to live outside or beyond your means. You do not need carpet. You do not need pets. You do not need a big apartment. You need to have the smallest space possible, and you need to be humble. Be grateful that you are in Japan. Eat cheap food. Use cheap means of transportation. Get yourself a bicycle. Don't take the train every day. Do not by any means use a taxi. Try to spend as little money as possible. Go to Daiso. Get your stuff from the can-do shop. Go to the 300 coin store. Buy as little as possible. Spend as little money as possible. And when the opportunity for free stuff comes up, take it. This is another reason why staying at a share house is great. People leave. People give away free food. They give away free clothes, free furniture, etc. Learn about sayonara sales. Basically free furniture, free clothes, whatever, of Japanese and foreigners that are moving to another state, another city, or just trying to clean out the clutter out of their place. And it can be things that you can actually use. So this is the cheapest way to stay in Japan. You need at least $20,000 to live for 1 year realistically, but at the bare minimum $10,000 a month. This gives you leeway. I can say, live as close to your school as possible. Just pay your $500 for rent. Walk everywhere. There's going to be free water, free rice at plenty of places. You can live off of that free stuff. And just all you need is $500 a month. You can live in Japan, you get what I'm saying. That's not being realistic. You are going to get tired of eating rice. Something might happen to your place. You might not even be in a place where you have nice roommates to give you free stuff, etc. You don't want to be where if any expense happens, any emergency happens, you now have no money. You now have no help. You don't want it to be that way. So you want to make sure that you have more than enough money. And really, this is not a lot of money. So $1,500, really you're spending most of that on your needs. You only have a few $100s left at the end of the month. And really even less than that, because there's things you have to buy every month. Such as, like detergent. You need to wash your clothes. You're going to have to, do laundry. You're going to have to clean yourself. You have to clean up. You have to, whatever you do, wear deodorant, wear makeup, whatever you use lotion. All of that stuff, body wash, it all costs money on a regular basis. Of course, you can go to the dollar store to save as much as possible. But again, I would say allow yourself $1,500 at the bare minimum for every single month. If you choose to be a unicorn and you want to go against my rules and get your own apartment, you are going to need more than that. But as I said, if you do things the cheapest route possible, expect to come to Japan with $10,000 to last you for at least 6 months without having to work. If you really, really want to push it, the only way I recommend coming to Japan with less than $10,000 is if you have student loans. But even then, you are going to have to be on your grind, like as soon as possible. Because after you get here and after you pay your first, semester's tuition, you are going to basically be broke. And you cannot survive in Japan like that. They will kick you out. You will get deported. Stuff will happen. You cannot live in Japan for free unless you plan on being a hooker. And that's illegal on a student visa. So be, very careful with what you do. You don't want to ruin your reputation. You don't want to get, a 10-year ban. You don't want to have to call your mom and dad and say, hey, I need money. You don't want to have to go back home because you can't afford being here. Take your time and save up for living in Japan. And while we're on that topic, before you come to Japan, you need to actually work. Don't just think that saving your $100 a month is going to get you somewhere. Yes, it's nice that you're doing something, but you need to be saving more than that. If you're already working a job, you need a job that pays more. Get a second job. Get a third job. Do whatever you have to do. Start a fundraiser. Ask your friends, ask your family, ask people to go to church with you. You need to raise as much money as possible. Make some. There's so many websites. There's eBay, there's Etsy, there's Amazon. There is no excuse for you to come to Japan broke. You don't need to be a millionaire. You don't have to wait until you're 30 or 40 years old and you've graduated and you have no debt and everything's perfect in your life. It'll probably never really be a perfect time. To be honest, the younger you are, the better. Because more than likely, if you're doing things the way you should, people make mistakes, life happens. But preferably if you don't have children, you have no spouse, you have nobody really holding you down or holding you back, you're free. This is the best time to come here because you don't have to worry about those other expenses. You're only paying for yourself. So really, you want to come here as soon as possible, kind of. But it's no use in coming here if all you're going to do is go back home in a few months anyway. You might as well have just came, as a field trip instead of trying to move yourself here. Because it's a lot more embarrassing to come to Japan, give up everything, move all the way over here, and then have to lose all of your stuff because you run out of money, you can't afford to ship it all back home, and go through all of that garbage. Don't do that to yourself. Take time, plan your move here, save the money to get here. Choose to do side jobs. Do yard work, babysit, do what you have to do, work overnight jobs. You'll be amazed at how many people need a babysitter in your community. There are not a lot of babysitters nowadays, and most of them charge a ton of money. Undercut, charge less. You will get more customers and make a lot of money in a short amount of time. It's exactly what I did. When I used to babysit, I used to charge between $40 to $50 per day. I would do a lot of overnight babysitting. So I would have, 2 and 3 customers in one day. So I would, end up going home. I would have anywhere from $80 to $100 on top of my salary of, working my little restaurant job at Starbucks and Walmart. And then eventually I became a pharmacy technician. So I was, getting paid even more. And on top of that, I was working, these little side jobs too. I started, selling handmade jewelry. I started selling dresses. I started making hoodies. I made pillows. If you don't know how to sew, learn. There's so many places you can sell your crafts on. So many places that you can tutor people. You can teach English online. There's so many different things that you can do. You can work customer service. You can work at a call center. There's no reason for you to not have more than one job. And you can literally make that extra job where all of that money is just going into a savings account for Japan. Do not underestimate the power of fundraising. Do not give up. You don't have to know a million different people. All you need to do is get, your fundraiser into the hands of a couple of good people that, really want to do good and bless someone, and they will give you a ton of money that can really, help you out a lot. Keep in mind that any money you get is going to be gone and used regardless, because you're probably going to stay here for more than 6 months or more than a year, but any amount they give will help you to get started. Your goal is to get your foot in the door. Once you're in Japan, again, more than likely, most people do get approved, you will be able to work part-time, you can work for your school, you can work for yourself and get your own students. So do not give up, but again, you want to be realistic and your goal should be to have at least 10K. You don't want to come here with less than that. But again, if you do have a student loan that's going to help you out in financial aid, you can probably realistically come to Japan with about $3,000 to $5,000 cash. But I don't recommend that. You can do it, but again, I do not recommend that you do that because that'll only be able to get you by for a few, if not a couple of months. Your money will go a lot faster than you think. No matter how frugal you might think you are, Japan does add up when you're not working because now you're spending money and no money is coming in. And it's going to take you a minute before you get a good enough feel of Japan and you feel comfortable, with applying to part-time jobs, and your Japanese is good enough for these part-time jobs. And of course, you want to work for legal places that are not shady and that are going to actually pay you because there are plenty of companies that will have you work for them and then never pay you at the end of the day. You're not going to come to Japan and be some, model or whatever you're thinking that you're going to do. There's plenty of foreigners that want to do the exact same thing as you. It's a backed up, competitive industry. There's going to be some Russian girl that has whiter skin than you, taller than you, and again, lighter, prettier colored eyes than you do. I'm just being real. It's a nice dream, but more than likely, any type of modeling work you do, you're only going to get paid like $100, $200 at best. And if they really give you something, you might get $1,000 or $2,000. But that's after going to several casting calls, going from city to city, and spending hours of your time doing other stuff. Do also keep in mind that not all agencies even work with students. So yeah, that's all a whole other story. I'm just letting you know you don't want to be totally reliant on getting a job because you may or may not be able to find one, especially if you're not a native speaker right away. But at the same time, don't freak out about not having a ton of money or enough money because you most certainly can, get money once you come here. You can work, you're going to work, you have to work, and eventually you will hopefully graduate and then be able to work full time. That's not everybody's dream. A lot of people just want to come to Japan for school and go back home. You might think it's your dream to stay, live, and work here, but after being here for a minute, you might be like, I don't like Japan, I miss my home country. It's overrated. And sometimes I even feel that way too. It is overrated. So again, I'm not going to tell you not to come to Japan. I love it here. But I will say that being here is overrated and it will get old just like everything else. Think of it like any, major city that you've been to in America. I really love New York, but after I went there, I was like, not that different from Chicago. So again, it's all totally up to you. You decide how much money you want to have. But in my personal opinion, I say you need at least $10,000 to survive for 6 months. I would say $20,000, but being realistic, you don't need to have all the money that you're going to need for the entire year. Because if you're not stupid, you should be working before you've been here for a year. Do not wait that long. You can get a job much, earlier than that. Don't wait until your visa is running out. Don't wait until your time is running out. Try to find a job as soon as you get here, as soon as you get permission. Get your own students, find your own work. You need that extra money. Do not wait until you have no money because now you're going to be struggling and living paycheck to paycheck. You want to have a little bit of cushion, and it would be nice if you can make an emergency savings account, too. So anyway, that is that. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments down below. I will try my best to answer your question and or make another video on it. I have several different, playlists and articles that you can read about college students in Japan, which I highly recommend that you check them out. They're all in the description box down below. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and I have a Snapchat and a Facebook page as well. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.